Over the last few decades, the supplement industry has absolutely exploded to today be well over 50 billion in annualized sales. And if you're like me, you might have taken a lot of supplements over the years, or maybe you're looking to improve in your health and you're interested in supplements. As someone who's spent more than 20 years working in the supplement industry behind the scenes, I've learned that it's wild, wild west. And there's a lot you need to be careful when buying supplements. Oh, and if you haven't met, hi, my name is Taro. And about 12 years ago, I started a mushroom wellness company called Four Sigmatic. For the last 12 something years, we've been growing our sales around the world and really created a category between the merger of foods and supplements. When I started looking into supplements over 20 years ago, I saw it like many others at that time through magazines, through the fitness industry. Bad news is that back then the information was very limited. So you had to ask the kind of stronger people at the gym or other athletes of what they're taking. At the same time, there's only a handful of choices. Today, you can find almost any information in YouTube or on the internet. And bad news is there's a lot more options, and the amount of supplement companies have absolutely exploded. Before we get into the meat and potatoes or the creatine monohydrates and omega-3 fatty acids, I want to share something absolutely critical that you need to understand as an umbrella. Sometimes I hear when people ask me about my company, Four Sigmatic, or some other supplement, they're like, is this good for you? They ask me, is that FDA approved? So you might have heard of Food Drug Administration, and you might think that they govern around supplements. And in a way they do, but at the same time, they absolutely don't. There is zero, really, FDA-approved supplements on the market. FDA works in the dietary supplement world on an aftermarket policy. So they really only interfere if something goes wrong. There's also probably too many companies to govern at this point. There's tens of thousands of dietary supplement companies and more coming every year. So they really probably even couldn't check all of them in advance. And while FDA puts guardrails, kind of bumpers on what you have to have in a label, for example, in a supplement facts panel, or what you can and cannot say, honestly, a lot of the stuff that companies do are not governed. Besides knowing that FDA works on an aftermarket policy and that there is no approved FDA supplements, the other thing you should really know that supplements are very high margin. So if you take all the landscape of consumer packaged goods or consumer goods overall, supplements are one of the most lucrative businesses if you can sell them well. Some even say powders and pills pay for the bills. And that's just to say that besides beauty, supplements is maybe one of the highest margin categories one can go into. That's why often in beauty and supplements, you have really bold, crazy claims, and also the companies spend ridiculous amounts of money in advertising. You don't see this as much in some other categories that are lower margin, let's say frozen food. There's not that many new young startup companies advertising in frozen foods because the margins are very slim. The first and maybe the most important problem that there is with supplements is that when you think you're buying something, you actually are not often, not even sometimes, often not getting what you think you're getting. As one example from my own industry in the functional and medicinal mushroom space, a few years ago, there was a peer-reviewed study in the acclaimed Nature published around the reishi supplements sold in the US market. And he found in that study that of all the mushroom brands sold in the US market for reishi supplements, 74% did not contain reishi mushrooms. And that's pretty crazy. Like, you can buy something, but it's actually the thing you're buying. And this can happen in food too. The famous example of that is olive oil. You can go and buy olive oil and it's actually not olive oil at all, or it's only partially olive oil. So first and foremost, there are many supplements where you think you're buying A and it does not contain any of what you think it's containing. Okay, let's assume you're actually getting what you think you're getting. The other problem with supplements is dosing. And this can be a problem in two different ways. One is that what is an effective dose of a supplement? Like, do you know how much you should take of ashwagandha extract or L-theanine or L-tryptophan? And that's very hard. That's also very individual, which is another layer to it. But let's just focus on the studies. It's hard to know as a consumer what is an effective dose of a supplement according to research. You can see in a label, so every supplement product if you turn it, on the right side, there should be a supplement facts panel. And in that panel, they have to list what the ingredients are in a certain way. But they're also allowed to lump certain ingredients together to talk about a proprietary blend, which is kind of a black box on what's in it. So they will say that there is 1,000 milligrams or 1 gram of a proprietary blend. They do have to list the proprietary blend ingredients in order, but you don't know how much of each one is. So you see this especially with products that have like 75 ingredients, but in reality, almost none of those ingredients are in an effective dose. So they say that you have all these like brand name ingredients or supplements, but in reality, you're not gonna get the benefits out of it. Okay, so you know you're getting the right thing. You know you're getting enough of it because the label says that there is 5 grams per serving. That's great. And you know that 5 grams is a good effective dose. Then the problem might be is it actually bioavailable? And this is sometimes different with different supplements, and we don't have time to go to all of it, but is it in a form that absorbs? And sometimes marketing companies really make claims that theirs is extra absorbing. And in the case of like creatine monohydrate, you just really want to buy creatine monohydrate, not some other version of it. But maybe more importantly, like, is it actually going to your bloodstream? And that might also be linked to like, do you have it with food or without food? Like certain isolated amino acids might not absorb as well as if you take it with a complete protein together. The fourth issue is purity. You might have heard of stories of different athletes, let's say a UFC fighter being caught of using illegal substances during a drug test. And then they say, well, I just took this one supplement, and then they found out the supplement was tainted. Now, without taking commentary if the UFC fighter knew it was tainted or not, it can happen. There's a bunch of products on the market that contain illegal substances that make them work. And for that reason, people love them because they're very effective, but they're using things that shouldn't be there or things that are not labeled in the product. There's also other ways how to cut costs. It's already a high margin product, but some companies want even more margin where they put stuff as a filler. There's things like amino spiking, where you put certain things in to make the label look favorable and the COGS stay lower, but the end product is less good for you. There's also the other aspect of purity, and that's not that they're necessarily lying, but there are quality issues with the supplements, such as heavy metals. You might buy a protein powder that's heavy in heavy metals. There might be glyphosate or other toxins in the supplements. Most supplements are not organic, and that's an increasingly issue. There was a recent study that showed that male sperm is declining partly because of glyphosate that we're getting from food supply, but also in dietary supplements because they tend to be concentrated forms of nutrition. These problems can kind of compound, especially if you take them daily. So purity can not just be part of lying, but also the quality and purity of the ingredients and these other toxins that often are not tested for. So the fifth and last point is around sustainability. Now, you might not care at all about the sustainability. I do, but you might not, and that's fair. But like at the end of the day, the sustainability can impact also the quality of products you have. And generally in supplements, there is very little to no sustainability. And that's impacting the whole value chain, the employees, everybody linked with the industry. And it's a very scammy industry that you might not feel good about if you know actually what happens behind the scenes. How are the employees treated? How are the products made? And that's quite sad to me. But again, I understand you might just care what's in it for you and what you get out of the products yourself. Okay. So I'm not just doomsdaying dietary supplements. I take them daily, and I think they've been really value added for your health if you use them in the right way. But how can you know what to take, when to take, yada, yada, yada? And it's very hard. So here are a few things that I figured out for myself to make the decisions around supplements a lot easier and faster. First tip. Buy from Costco. Now, this might sound really weird. You might not think of Costco as the ultimate quality source, and it might not be on certain regards. But what Costco does is the only retailer I know in the whole world is that they check the suppliers. So they force the suppliers to pay for them to go and audit to know what the product comes from. And this is true for also the food items. So if you buy olive oil there, it's actually olive oil. But in Costco, they make sure that if you think you're buying vitamin D or creatine, it actually is what they say it is. And a sidebar, you don't need a Costco membership. You can also just look at what they're selling and buy those brands elsewhere if you want. Secondly, buy certified organic supplements. Now, I could talk a lot more about organic certification, how to get it, pros and cons of it. If you want that, leave a comment below. I can make a separate video. But in general, if you buy a certified organic product, does it guarantee that there is no pesticides? Sadly, no. But if you buy a conventional product, you pretty much guarantee that there is. What's cool about organic certification is that it kind of tells that the company had to do some background research on their suppliers 1, 2, 3 levels down. And usually those founders, entrepreneurs, and CEOs, they care more about the product quality than some others. So besides the pesticide aspect, generally they're buying better quality ingredients from better suppliers with more thoughtfulness on sustainability. So besides Costco and buying organic, try to buy from brands where there's an actual face, like there's someone's name and face on the product, or not even necessarily on the product, on the website. Companies that you can't even find like who's the owner, who's behind it, it's much easier to lie and cheat when there's no accountability. So some level of accountability helps. Again, none of these tips will guarantee that it's a quality product, but it definitely, like, people put their life and their brand in place to sell a product. So it helps with some of that. Ideally, these are products that they take themselves and they give it to their children. Like I give our products to our kids. We make smoothies every morning of 4-sigmatic proteins. So those are good things. Like if you're willing to eat it yourself and give it to your kids on a regular basis, I mean, that definitely tells something about the product quality. At least nobody's like maliciously trying to feed you BS. Fourth, and maybe the weirdest tip, is try to macrodose on your supplements when you first get them. So once you get it, start with the recommended dose and start building it up, like doubling, tripling, quadrupling the amounts. Now, depending on the supplement, there is a point when you can kind of overdose and start feeling some negative side effects, but you should also start feeling the benefits that they claim you get from those products. So if you don't start feeling noticeable effects from a product, that could tell you something about the product quality. This is, again, not bulletproof. There are products that are meant for more long-term, slow, habitual use, but many items, like if they're telling you you get energy and you double and triple the effects, you should start really feeling the energy. And then once you've done that test, you can dial back on the dosing back to the recommended level, sometimes even under it, or sometimes higher than that. But at least you've kind of tried to macrodose the product. By the way, this is not health advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. This is just me sharing my experiences after using these products for more than 20 years and working in the industry myself. Tip number 5, on the same level as macrodosing, try tasting your supplements by themselves. So if it's a capsule, try opening the capsule, tasting it. If it's a gel, try to bite it, eat it, and see what you taste. Not applicable to every supplement, but it is cool, like for example, in oils, to see if they taste, smell rancid. If you try something that's very supposed to be medicinal, it should probably taste bitter, earthy, or somehow strong. If it tastes bleak and bland and feels like rice powder, that's probably what it mostly is, rice powder. Tip number 6, stay away from gummies and tinctures. Now, they both have, in a way, their benefits. Like gummies for kids might be helpful if the kid refuses to take multivitamins and you think it truly needs it. By the way, most kids don't need them. Or if you want to make your own tinctures, or you know someone who makes their own tinctures, you can make amazing medicinal potions. That being said, these are two categories where you can really hide that they don't have much, if any, of their medicinal properties. So unless you make the tincture yourself, you might not always know how effective it is. It's kind of a black box. And with gummies and other things like effervescent capsules and whatnot, the amount of actives you can fit into those products is lower, and the most of it is like a filler in a way. Finally, the 7th and last tip might be the most obvious one. I know other people have told this specific advice in other videos, but you really don't need supplements. They are literally a supplement to a healthy lifestyle, a supplement to a whole foods diet, and a supplement to other lifestyle factors. They should be kind of like the cream on top, the cherry on the cake, and they shouldn't really be there to be a baseline for anything. They should make your either life easier by like, hey, you're in a hurry, you can't get enough protein, then use the protein shake to increase the total protein intake. Or hey, you're deficient in boron or something like that, and you, based on your blood work, and you want to take more boron in your diet, great, do that. But that is a supplement to your healthy diet and lifestyle. Okay, you made it all the way to the end. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully this was somehow helpful to you and you heard something that you can apply into your own life. At the end of the day, dietary supplement is really shady. You should have a huge grain of salt when you see ads on Instagram about supplement companies. At the end of the day, they can also be a great ally for you to live a better life. They can help you kind of be a glue to some of the gaps you might have because of a busy, hectic life, or just the overall stressors, like for example, during travel when your nutritional needs skyrocket. So hopefully you find value here. If not, or if you disagreed with something, leave a comment below. I'm not going to be offended, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.